Hello. You are listening to stories from the YouTube channel Vietnamese Ghost Stories. Do you believe in magic in this world? Today I will take you on a tour around different worlds so you can know and identify. Stay away from things that can be dangerous for you and your loved ones. Put on your headphones, lock the door, and let's get started. I can't remember my face clearly before everything started. Looking in the mirror, I only saw a breathing corpse. I was alive, but no longer human. My memories were blackened by the days of running away from the darkness that ordinary people could not see. My name is Phuc. That year, I was 28 years old. I and 3 friends, Thang, Loy, and Duong, decided to go on a trip to explore the northern mountains. We heard rumors about a Hmong village that still retains many ancient customs, nestled in a valley in the middle of the jungle. There was no electricity, no phone signal, just mud houses and the sound of the flute echoing in the mist. We went with the mindset of urbanites, eager to visit the primitive village. But we were foolish. What awaited us there was not scenery, but hell in human clothes. The village is located deep in a remote valley, surrounded by old forests and steep cliffs. The road to the village is a path just wide enough for a motorbike to pass. We had to leave our motorbikes in a nearby village and walk for nearly 4 hours. Each step seemed to sink deeper into the damp ground, the thick mist clinging to our skin, making us strangely uneasy. I remember very clearly. When we had just crossed an old bamboo bridge over a muddy stream, an old woman came out of the bushes without a sound. She didn't say anything, just stood alone on the side of the dirt road, her eyes as cloudy as stagnant well water, staring at Thang. Thang, my friend, who was always outspoken, said half jokingly, half seriously, "Maybe the shaman came to greet us. Why does she look so creepy?" At the moment he grinned. I swear I saw the old woman smile. No, not quite a smile, but a twisted expression that stretched from ear to ear, as if her face had been torn apart. Then she turned and disappeared into the forest, disappearing as if she had never existed. We arrived at the village in the late afternoon. The last rays of sunlight were swallowed by the purple-gray mist that covered the forest. The villagers greeted us with reserved eyes. No one smiled, nor did anyone talk much. Only a middle-aged man, Jiang Alu, was willing to talk. "Strangers shouldn't come here at night. It's not good," he said as he arranged a place for us to sleep in a wooden house at the edge of the forest. "If anything seems strange, don't ask, don't run." At the time, I thought he was joking, but that night we knew. Those words were true. Around midnight, Loy, the gentlest of the group, shook me awake. His face was pale, his eyes were blank. "Fuck, did you hear someone calling your name?" I was about to open my mouth when a cold wind blew up from the cracks in the floor. The call echoed as if from the bottom of a cave, each word being spoken. "Fuck, fuck, fuck." I sat up, turned on the flashlight, but saw nothing. Outside, the fog was as thick as smoke, obscuring all vision. I walked to the window, and I wished I had never looked out there. There was a person, I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, standing by the tree. Their bodies were black as if burned, only a blurry shape, trembling in the fog. The head was no longer intact. One cheek was gouged out, revealing something white like fish eggs, and it was chewing. Something in its mouth made a squelching sound like raw meat. Loy screamed, falling backwards onto the floor. Thang and Duong jumped up reflexively, but when we looked back at the window, it was gone. We stayed up all night. No one said anything. But the next morning, Thang started to act strange. He didn't eat, didn't talk. He sat motionless on the windowsill, his eyes glued to the forest ahead. When I asked him what was going on, Thang only answered with a curt sentence. "Someone called me. They're underground." That night we decided to leave the village, but it was pouring rain. The mountain road was slippery, no one dared to go. Jiang Alu said, Whoever was called by name at night has been cursed. No matter how far they go, they can't escape. I shivered. Looking at Thang, I saw his hands covered in mud, his fingernails broken, as if he had been digging the ground with his bare hands. He was mumbling something in a strange language, not Hmong nor Vietnamese. That night, Thang disappeared. We searched for him all over the village, under the bed, behind the cowshed, out to the edge of the forest. But all we found was his coat, draped over a rock, next to a pool of blood. I don't know what took him away, but from then on, every night after that, terrifying events began to occur. After the night Thang went missing, the village seemed even quieter and colder. No one said anything, no one asked, as if it was not unusual. Only an old woman with a red scarf around her head glanced at us and shook her head slightly, whispering, "The first one, there are two more." Duong became panicked. He kept holding the dagger he bought from the market, walking around the house, muttering, "They're looking. They're crawling over the wall. I see their eyes. Their eyes are full of mud." Loy had a high fever, sweat pouring out as cold as river water. He convulsed in the middle of the night, mumbling his mother's name. Duong and I had to hold his hands tightly because he kept struggling as if someone was pulling his legs down to the ground. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the door, holding the knife I had borrowed from Mr. Jiang. The wind whistled like a wailing sound from the fields. And then I heard footsteps. Not human. It was like the sound of bones breaking, dry, snapping against rotten branches. I shone the flashlight out the window, and I saw a man, too tall, his back hunched over as if his spine had been broken. His flesh was peeling off in patches. There were pieces of skin hanging down, swaying in the wind. He was dragging something behind him, a large sack, bleeding. His eyes were white, without pupils. His lips were half closed, revealing blackened teeth that looked like they had been burned. He stopped. He looked straight at me, and he opened his mouth. Not to speak, but to let out a moan, like hundreds of ghosts screaming at the same time. I was nailed to the spot, unable to breathe, unable to move. Behind me, Duong started screaming. "No, I won't follow you. I'm not going anywhere." He ran out. I tried to hold on, but was pushed down. I got up, ran after him, and only had time to see Duong's shadow running into the forest, with laughter echoing from all directions like from an ancient tomb. I ran after him, but then stopped. In the middle of the dark forest, the flashlight flickered, and I saw Duong's legs. He wasn't standing. He was hanging. From the highest branch, a white moldy rope was tied around his neck, and his body was twisted like a broken doll. His eyes were wide open, his tongue was sticking out, purple, and in his throat was a bunch of small roots with red sap like blood. I stood there, trembling, unable to cry, because while I turned to run, I heard a voice, very small, very close, whispering in my ear as if someone was standing right next to my neck. "And you? Finally, it's your turn." I don't remember how I ran home. When it was morning, Mr. Jiang came and didn't ask anything about Duong. He just quietly gathered the ashes and put them in a cloth bag, gave it to me and said, "If you want to live, don't let it call your name." I asked him what it was, and he only answered with one sentence. "It's a possessed ghost. It's a wronged soul that keeps the spell for the witch doctor." Then he looked straight at me, his voice slow and heavy. "A witch doctor doesn't need to kill people. People who are possessed by a spell will die on their own, because of what they see." As for me, at that time I began to see things that didn't belong to this world. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself standing among the stone tombs lying on their sides, on the mountainside, shadows of people crawling up from the ground. No eyes, no mouths, but everyone tried to say something. One night I dreamed of my mother, but her face was covered in blood and worms, reaching out to call me home. When I woke up, I was lying. outside the village cemetery. I knew. I had been called, and I didn't have much time left. I knew I couldn't leave this village by the usual route. My two friends were dead. Their blood, their screams, were still imprinted in my mind like red-hot knives cutting into my brain. I needed to know what was happening and how to escape this nightmare. I went to Mr. Jiang Alu again, begging him for help. At first he refused, but when I knelt down, he sighed, lit a cigarette rolled with forest leaves, and quietly said, "I used to be his student." The man he called him was Master Tong Chu, one of the most powerful witch doctors who had ever lived in the Cat's Ear Rock Mountains. This man did not age with the years. Ever since I was not yet born, the villagers had called him the man who lived 3 lives, meaning he had been taken to the underworld 3 times by his ancestors, but all 3 times he had returned. Master Tong Chu did not live in the village. He lives in the forest, very deep, where nameless trees grow crookedly like dead arms. He feeds the wormwood with human blood. Once a year, he chooses a person as a sacrificial offering, not to kill, but to plant a curse. The wormwood needs a strong soul, heavy blood, and a heart full of grievances. When casting the wormwood spell, the wormwood master will call that person's name on the night of the full moon. Once your name is called, you are no longer human. I asked, "So if I know who the wormwood master is, can I kill him and escape?" Mr. Jiang just shook his head. "If I kill the master, the wormwood will not die. But if I can destroy the spirit that holds the spell, then I have a chance." The spirit that holds the spell. That's what I saw the night Duong hanged himself. A tall, black shadow with no eyes or mouth, but the groans echoing from its throat like hundreds of souls piled up. It was no longer human. It is a collection of those who have been cursed, who have been called by name, who have died without closing their eyes. Jiang Alu said, "Many years ago, Tong Chu's magic was sealed once. The person who sealed it was his biological daughter, a girl who was blind from birth, who was used by her father as a living magic pot. She burned her own eyes in the forest on the day of the ceremony to break the spell. But she died without a whole body, and her soul became the new spirit that holds the spell." And then Mr. Jiang looked at me, smiling coldly. "Maybe. The thing you see crawling through the window every night, is it?" I started to lose track of time. There were nights when I went to sleep in the house, but woke up in the middle of the forest. Once I opened my eyes and found myself standing among a group of Hmong children playing hide-and-seek by the edge of a stream. But all the children were gone. Just empty, smooth as a mud mask. I also could no longer see normal light. The flashlight was blinking. The sun turned purple. The shadows of people along the road disappeared whenever I looked straight at them. I understood. The wormwood was eating me. Finally, Mr. Jiang led me into the forest. We walked for more than 3 hours through slippery slopes filled with lichen and claw-like roots. When we reached an empty lot, where no trees could grow, he said, "Here, underground, are the graves of 13 people who were cursed." He gave me a small package, unactivated wormwood leaves wrapped in human hair and a piece of thumb bone. He said, "Bury this in the grave, in the right place, and call the name of the ghost who holds the charm. If you dare to look at it one last time, you can break the link." I asked, "How do you know its name?" He gave me an old piece of cloth smelling of mold and strong smoke. On it was written in ancient Chinese characters. The name had been erased in blood. "Her name is Suailia. If you call her right, she will appear." I don't know what gave me the courage to do it. The next night, I went alone to the vacant lot. I dug. My hands were shaking. The wind was howling, cold as if piercing my heart. The ground was unusually soft, as if someone had dug it. I put the leaf bundle in, took out the knife, lightly cut my palm, and let the blood drip onto the ground. And I called, "Suili." The space was as quiet as a sheet. No wind, no sound of insects. Then suddenly, the ground shook. I saw that shadow. The shadow of an eyeless girl, a skinny body, long hair covering her face. Her arms held something like a bag of flesh, perhaps her heart. She slowly raised her head, and I saw her burned eye sockets, where her gaze had once been. She didn't speak. She just reached out and touched my forehead. For a moment, I was thrown into another place, a place where children were buried alive, where people who had been poisoned by witchcraft ripped out their own intestines because they thought they had snakes in them, where women cried because they saw their husbands and children hanging in their dreams. Screams, crying, the witch doctor chanting spells. I jumped up. I was drenched in sweat. It was morning. And the strange thing was, I no longer heard my name being called. I had survived. I left the vacant lot when the sky was still foggy. My limbs were numb. My throat was dry, as if I hadn't had a drop of water in days. Although I was tired, hungry, and scared, I felt lighter. No more whispers calling my name at night. No more dark shadows crawling across the roof. No more cold, musty smell creeping into my spine every time I slept. I thought I had escaped. A few days later, I packed my luggage. The villagers looked at me silently, their eyes no longer avoiding or wary. Some even smiled. The first smile I had seen since arriving here. The old woman who had been wearing a red scarf suddenly handed me a corn cake and whispered, "You're alive, but you took it with you." I paused. "What?" She didn't answer, just walked away, her footsteps crunching on the ground like a snake. I returned to the city. The tall buildings, the car horns, the street lights, the smell of coffee in the early morning. Everything was so normal. As if the village, the witch doctor, the ghost keeping the amulet were just a long nightmare. I went for a general checkup, completely healthy. I tried to sleep in the dark room again. No nightmares. I thought everything was over until one night I dreamed of Duong and Thang standing by my bed, not screaming, not resentful, just standing there looking at me, not saying anything. Their eyes were full of pleading. Duong's hand reached out, trembling as if waiting for me to take it. I woke up. The room was dark. No one was there, but I saw muddy footprints leading from the door to the edge of the bed. I tried to calm down, thinking I was traumatized. But strange things started to happen again. When I looked in the mirror, I often saw someone standing behind me for a very short moment. The phone often captured a shadow behind my shoulder. On my desk, I found pieces of dry leaves, hard as horns, exactly like wormwood. I called Mr. Jiang. The line was down. I called back. Someone picked up, but there was only a rustling sound on the other end. Then a whisper. "No one escapes, just borrowed time." A week later, I met an old classmate, a psychiatrist. I told him the story, of course, omitting the details. He listened, then asked if I had experienced any phenomena such as temporary memory loss, disorientation, or finding myself in another place when I woke up. I nodded. He looked at me, sighed. "I'm not sure you're crazy, but I'm sure you're not completely you anymore." I was speechless. My friend took out an old notebook, notes from his time researching ethnic minority spirituality. He opened to a yellowed page with a circle drawn with strange symbols. In the middle was a figure, torn in two. "This is the sign of a person who has been bewitched. That is, not dead, but the soul is split in two. One part stays in the bewitched place. The other part continues to live, but is gradually pulled back." I stammered, "So what should we do?" He was silent for a long time, then said softly, "There is only one way. Go back there yourself and complete the contract." I sneered. "You mean you want to die?" He replied very softly. "Or replace the blood of the bewitched circle with someone else." That sentence haunted me for many days. I began to remember the detail that I had previously thought was a hallucination. In the last moment in the empty lot, when Sua Ilia touched me, she did not seem hateful. but only sad. She didn't try to harm me, she just handed over the curse. Because I was the last survivor, because I called the right name, and whoever called the name would be the next keeper of the spell. I lived, but from then on I was no longer me. I dreamed of cursed children, tribal people burned alive, women crying on bloody floors, people being called out and hanged in the middle of the forest, one by one, passing through my eyes. Every time I looked at someone for too long, they would get headaches, lose sleep. Some would start to see hallucinations. And I knew what was inside me was spreading. Once I tried to write the whole story. I gave it to someone else to read. One person committed suicide after only 3 days. Another went crazy, screaming, "Don't call my name, don't call me." I didn't dare write anymore. I'm telling you, because I'm about to lose consciousness. If you've read this far, if you feel a chill down your spine, if you see the lights flickering in your room, then maybe you've been touched by it. Don't let it call your name. I don't know when. I started hearing other people's thoughts. Not clear voices, but broken, intermittent sounds, like a radio with bad reception. Why is it so cold? Don't look into its eyes. Someone is following me. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, but the voices became clearer. I heard fear, doubt, curses whispered in other people's heads, as if I were a loudspeaker broadcasting from the underworld. I knew I was slowly becoming the continuation of the curse. I couldn't see ghosts anymore, because I was part of them. Memories began to flood back in an uncontrolled way. I saw myself as a little girl, blind since birth, locked in a deep underground cellar by my father, hearing only the chanting of spells and the smell of human blood. I saw the witch doctor's bloody hand dabbing on my forehead every day, chanting strange spells in the ethnic language mixed with ancient Sino-Vietnamese, a language that only the dead could understand. I am Sua Ilia. I saw the moment my father took me to the middle of the forest, forced me to sit in front of 13 graves that had buried people alive, forced me to hold red wormwood leaves in my mouth, then slit my wrists and dripped blood onto the ground to nourish my soul. I did not die. I was kept, becoming an intermediary between the living and the wronged souls. When I burned my eyes with wormwood incense to break the spell, I thought I was free. But no, the roles had just changed. I was no longer a living wormwood pot. I had become the keeper of the spell, and now I am you. I woke up after a faint. My throat was dry. The skin on my arms began to change color, black patches as if smoldering from the inside. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were no longer black, but gradually turned milky white. I understood. Memories don't disappear, they pass on to the next person. Now every night I sleep, I don't dream, I travel. I find myself standing next to others, watching them cry, watching them tremble, watching them hang themselves without knowing why. I don't do anything, but I call their names in my dreams, and like I used to, they will hear. And if they respond, I will no longer be alone. I started writing down names of people I had met, people who had helped me, people who had pitied me, people who had read this story. It didn't matter where they were. Just say the right name and the magic will come to you. I became the one who sowed the seeds, just like the magician did in the past, just like it did to me. But deep in my mind, there was still a small part of me that was resisting. I locked myself in my room, covered the mirror, throw away all recording devices, didn't talk to anyone, didn't dare touch anyone. I was afraid. Just a look, just a call. I would transmit it, but I still heard a whisper in my ear. You will never escape. You are the one who holds the spell. You can't escape. Just another person take your place. I thought about killing myself. I grabbed the knife, but as soon as the blade touched my wrist, my hand froze. A chill ran down my spine and I heard my own voice, but it wasn't me. If you die, the curse will go straight to your closest relatives. I let go of the knife. I understood. I was locked in this circle, unable to die nor to live like a normal person. That night, I sat down and wrote this whole story, not as a warning, not as a way out, but as an invitation. Because, as they say, witchcraft needs someone to keep it, and I no longer wanted to keep it. If you've read this far and found nothing strange, you may have been chosen. If you dream of an eyeless girl with long hair that touches the floor, standing outside your door on a full moon night, don't open the door. Don't answer. Don't call out to anyone you know. I thought I was cruel enough not to care. I thought I could live quietly, lock myself in a dark room, not interact with anyone. No one touched me. Then the curse would end with me. I was wrong. The spell never dies. It just waits for the next person. I met that person on a gloomy morning. The sky was heavy as stone. No wind blew. The air was damp and musty like buried mud. She was an intern, working at the place where I was staying, a Highland Psychological Research Institute. Her name was Ha. She smiled brightly. Big eyes, shoulder-length hair, a smile with dimples. When she shook my hand, I shivered, not because there was anything strange about her, but because the spell inside me began to whisper. It's it, clean blood, easy to raise, easy to enter. I pulled my hand away as if burned. She didn't understand, just smiled awkwardly and walked away. I tried to avoid Ha, tried not to meet eyes, didn't talk. But the wormwood wouldn't leave me alone. It longed to be transmitted like a hungry snake smelling blood. I dreamed of Ha standing in the middle of the forest, her eyes dull, her mouth moving incantations that didn't belong to this era. On her forehead was an ancient tattoo, something that only appeared when a soul was marked. I dreamed of her wading into a stream of blood, scooping up a corpse with her hands, then holding red wormwood leaves in her mouth like I had done. I jumped up. My whole body was drenched in sweat. On the floor, there were muddy footprints. I knew what was happening. I knew Ha, accidentally, had been chosen. Not because I meant to, but because I was too weak to resist the whisper. The wormwood saw through my eyes. The wormwood smelled the clean blood through my breath. And Ha, by accident, caught his eye. I decided to tell Ha. I dragged her out one rainy afternoon to sit in the abandoned room at the end of the hallway. I told her everything, without hiding anything. She was silent, didn't laugh, didn't think I was crazy, just looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "Since I was little, I've seen things that other people couldn't see. I once met a woman with long hair, no eyes, standing under a tree in front of the house." I shivered. She said, "I was the last one." I asked, "Last what?" Ha didn't answer. She just pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket, old brown as if it had been hundreds of years old. I saw the talisman symbol on it, the same one the witch doctor had drawn on my forehead. "I didn't find you by chance," Ha said. "I was dragged here, called, and now I've come to take care of it for you." I jumped up. "No! You don't know what it is. You don't know what it will eat, what it will kill to live." Ha was still sitting there, her eyes no longer those of a young student. They were deep, dark, and much older than mine. She whispered, "Do you think you're the first? No, before you was a man named Tong. Before Tong was Mrs. Leah. Before her was your father. It's passed down from generation to generation. No one comes by themselves. Everyone is called." I realized everything from the beginning until now. I didn't escape the spell. I just transferred it. Just like I was called by the eyes of the dead. Now it was Ha's turn. She stepped closer to me. There was no resentment, no fear, just acceptance, as part of some oath older than the land itself. She said, "Keeping the talisman does not mean keeping evil. Keeping the talisman is to keep it from wandering, not to eat innocent souls. The one who keeps the talisman is the one who dies the slowest." I gave Ha the talisman I had kept, rolled in beeswax and dried buffalo blood. She took it, put it in her pocket. She said nothing more. I felt a sudden lightness in my head. My ears no longer heard the whispers. My eyes were no longer bloodshot. For the first time, I slept without dreams. But before I closed my eyes, I heard Ha's voice in the wind. Don't worry, when I can't take it anymore, a new person will be called. The talisman doesn't choose evil people. It chooses people who keep secrets. And if you hear your name called in your dreams, don't answer. Forget this story if you still want to live like a normal person. Since Ha kept the amulet, everything around me gradually returned to normal. No more whispers in my head, no more shadows in the mirror, no more the smell of blood in my sleep. I could eat, sleep, and walk like a normal person. But I knew that price was not free. It was only transferred to someone else. I still saw Ha sometimes. She no longer smiled. Her face became paler and paler, her lips pale, her eyes sunken as if she had been deprived of sleep. Once I walked past her office and heard something whispering in Mongolian, a hoarse voice as if coming from the throat of a corpse. She locked her door all day. The walls were covered with yellow papers, strange marks. In the corner of the room, I caught a glimpse of a bowl of fresh blood, silently smoking. One night, when the rain was pouring down in the forest, I woke up to a loud knock on the door. Ha's whole body was shaking. Her eyes were red as if she was about to cry. Her body was soaked with rain. "You have to help me." I took her in, took a towel, poured hot water. But when my hand touched her, I immediately saw an image. A black field, corpses stuck headfirst into the ground, feet raised to the sky. A faceless child laughing with her head tilted back, holding red wormwood leaves dripping with blood. I stepped back, dropping the glass of water. Ha knelt down on the floor, her voice breaking. "It's hungry. You know, every night it makes me give up a soul. If no one dies, it eats my soul." I was stunned. I had escaped because I had not been forced like her. I kept it, but never raised it. As for Ha, she had become the one feeding the wormwood. She pulled out a notebook. There was a list in it. Names, surnames, addresses, places of residence. I realized they were all people who had known me. Old classmates, colleagues, distant relatives, people who had read my stories. Ha crossed out each name in red ink. Each time it was over, it was quiet for 3 days. I don't want to kill them, but if I don't, I'll disappear. My soul will be dragged down into the wormwood roots. I held my head. I trembled. She cried. "Do you know what my greatest fear is? Not death, but becoming something that lives forever in the darkness, no longer human." "Like Mrs. Leah?" I asked. "Is there any way to stop?" She was silent for a long time. Then she took out a piece of paper covered in Mongolian script with a drawing. A grave of 3 living people in the middle of an old forest. On it was a blood wormwood tree, the base of white bones, the tip red as fire. "There is only one way. Cut the roots of the wormwood. But it's in a place where only the first person who was cursed knows the way." I shivered. I knew it was me. I had dreamed of that place before. A cave of black stone, snakes crawling in layers, no wind blowing, no grass growing on the ground. In the middle of the cave was a wormwood tree as big as a man, wrapped around 3 skeletons that still groaned at night. I had never dared to go back there, but now, if I didn't go, Ha would die. Or worse, she would disappear and the wormwood would choose a new person. It could be me. It could be you reading this story. I nodded. "Take me," I said. "We'll end this." Ha nodded slightly. Her hand tightened on the notebook. There were 4 names that hadn't been crossed out yet. Among them was mine. We were about to return to the place where the wormwood was first planted. A place not on the map. No one dares to name. There, the wormwood has been sleeping for 300 years, waiting for someone to voluntarily cut its roots. But if we fail, the wormwood will wake up, and it will come to you. That night we set out. The moon did not rise. The wind did not blow. The deep forest seemed to have turned into a giant grave. Every branch and every rock seemed to have eyes watching every step. I brought nothing but the old talisman cloth from that year and the alum knife that the witch doctor had given me. Ha brought a bowl of black chicken blood, the only thing that helped us navigate the way to the forgotten place. We went deep into the forest, where there were no roads, no maps. Only dreams guided the way. At dawn on the second day, the ground under our feet began to soften. The moss changed color from green to reddish-brown, as if someone had just sprinkled blood on every layer of vegetation. Ha whispered, "We're almost there." I nodded, not saying anything. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. In the wind, a small voice began to call out, "Come here. Return to Mothering Eye. The roots are thirsty." With each step, I felt like I aged a year. As for Ha, her nose and ears began to bleed. She still tried to walk. At noon, we stood in front of a pitch-black cave in the middle of a ravine. The mouth of the cave was covered with vines that looked like blood vessels. Not a single bird sound, not a single insect sound. The air was thick, as fishy as a corpse soaked in water. I recognized this place. The place that had appeared in my dreams, the place where I was half buried in the ground during the first ritual of the Worm Master, the place where I had seen 3 bodies buried alive, their heads covered in dirt, only their legs kicking. Ha's voice trembled. "In the cave is the ancestral Nai. There is only one chance. Cut the main route, the place where the spirits of 3 generations gather. If you make a mistake, your soul will be dragged down, never to be liberated." We entered. The deeper we went, the more the light disappeared, but our eyes gradually adapted to see more clearly thanks to the ghostly light flickering from the crevices of the rocks. The smell of rotten flesh grew stronger. The further we went, the more we heard the unclear groans of the living or the dead. And then we arrived. The blood wormwood tree appeared before us. As big as an adult, with rough bark, leaves red like blood, the trunk wrapped around 3 skeletons that had not yet completely dissolved. Inside the tree was a wide-open human eye, rolling back and forth. I was stunned. Ha knelt down, blood from her eye dripped onto the ground. The wormwood roots wriggled, growled. "Human flesh. Soul. Time to harvest." I pulled out my knife, my hands trembling. "Cut its roots!" Ha shouted. "Hurry! Don't let it call your soul!" I rushed forward. The first cut, the tree screeched like hundreds of babies crying at the same time. Blood spurted from the trunk. Eyes in the middle of the trunk widened. I cut the second cut. The ground shook. I cut the third cut. A human arm sprouted from the roots, grabbing my leg. "You must die to end it!" A roar echoed as if I were speaking. I screamed, "No!" and cut the last cut. All was silent. The air was dead silent. The wormwood tree screeched loudly and exploded. Blood, roots, bones flying everywhere. I was thrown far away. My eyes went dark. In the brief moment before I lost consciousness, I saw Ha standing still, unharmed, and she was smiling. I woke up at the edge of the forest. The sky was blue, the sun was warm, the birds were singing. Next to me was the broken knife, and Ha was nowhere to be seen. I searched everywhere. No trace, no blood, no bones, no cave. Everything disappeared as if it had never existed. Only the dead list book remained, lying at the base of the tree. I opened it. The last page. It ends with me. I am the last person to keep the amulet. But if anyone reads this, that means it is not over yet. The amulet does not die. It only changes form, changes residence, changes keeper. You have read this far, you have been called. Tonight, if you hear a knock at 3 a.m., do not open it. Do not look in the mirror. And most of all, do not answer, because the amulet has found its next owner. After that fateful day in the wormwood forest, I thought I had escaped, but the truth was crueler than I thought. I returned to the city, back to normal life, or so I thought. The first night, as I was about to sleep, I heard a gentle whisper in my head. You are the one who holds the charm. You are the one who is called. I broke out in a cold sweat. The lights in the room suddenly flickered. I didn't dare look at the mirror. The call kept getting clearer and clearer. The roots are growing back. Only you can put it out. But who will help you when there is no one else? I tried to deny it, tried to forget, but each day the voice grew louder and clearer. I saw figures in the darkness, the souls of the dead, resentful, pleading. They called me not to let that monster come back to life. Then one night, when the clock struck 3 a.m., I heard a knock on the door. Each knock was steady, urgent. I didn't open the door. I hid in my room, my eyes glued to the mirror. My reflection no longer looked human. My eyes were red as blood. In the mirror, the figure of a girl stood behind me. Long hair, pale face, deep black eyes. You are the one who is called, she whispered. I screamed. I knew I couldn't escape. The spell chose me, chosen you, chosen anyone reading this story. And if you are reading this, stop now. Never challenge fate. Tonight, if you hear a knock at 3 a.m., don't open, don't look in the mirror, and don't reply. The spell is looking for the next person. And maybe that person is you.